Technology at the moment is incredibly primitive. What do you mean? Smartphone? Technology is primitive. I'll tell you when it won't be primitive, when 400 people per day don't have to go to the Apple store for advice. You know, I'm sure if someone said when the telephone was invented, you know, when you had to wind it up and you had a separate piece, if someone then said, God, this is so primitive. What do you mean? You know, we're speaking to someone. Yes, but look at the fantastic distance we've come from that wind-up thing to smartphones. It's amazing. They're beautiful smartphones. But, you know, 20 years' time, we're going to look back to now and say, do you remember when there's smartphones? Do you remember what people did? You know, it's going to be the same, only because it always is. Yeah. Do you want me to talk about the Bowies? Basically, to cut a long story short, I was approached by David, who had said, who I didn't know before at all, when I met up with him, I had curated a show at the Hayward Gallery called, just before I met David, called Lives, L-I-V-E-S, and it was subtitled Artists Who Use Other People as the Subject Matter of Their Art. So there was no abstract art, no landscape art, no self-portraits, no performance artist who actually used self. They looked into other people's situations. One of the people I finally put in the show, and he was a stamp. He just designed one of the stamps in '79, beautiful stamp of a professional bicyclist. And I went to see him and said I was doing this show, and said, you know, would he be in it? And he said, well, I can't be in it, I'm not an artist. I said, what do you mean you're not an artist? I said, that stamp will be seen by more people than everyone in the show, everyone. So I persuaded him to be in the show. So it helped me curate a show that was high art and low art. Anyway, one of the people that I put in the show was Duffy, one of the great 60s photographers. I happen to think he's the best. I mean, Donovan and David Bailey, they're very good, but I think creatively and for originality, Duffy was the best. Now, Duffy worked a lot with Bowie, by the way. And anyway, I put him in the Hayward show and the live show, and a few weeks later he contacted me and he said, oh, I've got this friend, I know him, I know this friend very well, and I know you, and I think you'd really get on together. And just the way he framed it, I thought it was a blind date. I was sure it was female. So, oh, that's good. And anyway, so he said, come to the studio. And of course I went to the studio, it was David, not a blind date. So he said he's working on this new Lodger LP. And really, Duffy solved the great problem of a falling figure. You know, you can't get $1 million rock star falling to the ground. So what do? Do you know how that photograph was taken? If you look here, we built a table in the shape of David. So that's a regular table, and then the legs come out here, and then we built it, and we shot him from above. So it was though you were shooting him from the ceiling, looking down. And then took it out, and we took you see this here, you see the basin, the bathroom basin there? Yeah. Well, we put it on the floor here. And then we photograph him above, so that's how you get the illusion of David falling. In fact, you can just see at the end of the heel there, that you can just see one of the legs of the table, that little square. We worked on it, you know, for several weeks. And David called me up and he said, oh, what about knocking this record cover on the head? He said, come to Berlin for lunch. So I flew to Berlin. And, on that same phone call that before he said, come to Berlin for lunch, he said, you know, I said, oh, David, we haven't talked at all about the inside cover. He said, do what you like, which was great, a great brief for a graphic designer. So I did this as a design. This is a photograph of how we photograph David. This is Mantegna's The Death of Christ, which is in Milan Cathedral. A student of mine at the Royal College Photography Department was doing an essay on mortuaries, and even today I regret I didn't give him credit for that. Wherever you are, I'm sorry, but I should have done that. This is Che Guevara's autopsy. You know, he was murdered in Bolivia. He was a woman who was a CIA agent gave him away. A lot of these are preliminary drawings for working out what I might do. I mean, the cover, it turned out, was different, but I was just working out some different things, what we'd use. I mean, I have, you know, there's 10, 15 drawings like this, really.
You say drawings, are they done with pen then?
They're pen and ink, yeah. Yeah, I work a lot in pen and ink, although this one's in biro. Funny enough, if you talk for years and years, as I have, although I don't teach much lately, you get used to questions that get asked. And one question that's always asked is, a student will say, you know, Derek, I've got this idea for an artwork, but I don't know what medium to use. And I say to them, look, my answer may seem simple, but what you do is you use the medium that best suits the idea. Don't make a drawing of it if it would make it a better movie, you know. And within fine art, don't make an etching of it if it would make a better silkscreen. But, you know, or maybe you want to write about it, you know, maybe you don't want to do a visual at all, so that's the other thing. These four are new collages from 13 and 14, although I did some this year. This is just 4 out of about 15 or 16 that I've done. Again, teaching, I tell my students, the subject matter of an artwork is that which is most apparent. When you look at any artwork, I don't care what, installation, painting, whatever drawing, whatever it is, that notion that comes across more than 51% is what the thing's about, because often you can't see the subject matter of a work because the way it's done is more overpowering than the work itself. This is called From Willendorf to Vogue. So it's the Willendorf woman, you know, the famous three-dimensional, earliest known depiction of a woman to Vogue magazine. So I did that, and there was something not right about it. I liked it as far, and I couldn't work it out, and so I cut it out. And then I stuck it back on, and then I put these black lines around it. And that's what made all of these, because, as I said before they were overwhelmingly collage. Somehow, by bringing these image shapes in, they at least removed themselves a little from being collage. This was a very early one of a series. This was from '78, but I've been doing them from '78 to now, basically. Altering photographs, like taking an existing photographic image and by drawing on it, changing its sort of meaning, as it were. I remember this was from a French magazine, but it's called Depressed Cosmetic Salesman. And this is a similar piece I did about New York. I was reading about, you know, it was, this probably is a piece of, and it never goes away. If I could ban one word for the English language, it would be trending. I hate trending. Lemmings, it ought to be lemming-ing, not trending. This is a work that I do a lot about consumerism, and I do a lot about advertising. My work comes out of magazines, and my early pop art paintings were in fact to do with advertising and the intrusion of other cultures on your own. This is just high consumers, don't forget. Nothing lasts forever. I mean, which is like the opposite to what advertisers will tell you.
So overall, you do consider your work to fall under the pop art banner?
Well, I was a pop art earlier. I think I've turned from pop art to popularist. You know, my work has always come out of popular culture. My work has always come out of magazines, film, and music. I mean, one of the reasons that I worked, what excited me about working with David Bowie and working with the Clash, I was able to make work that reached outside of the art world. You know, my work reached out to the subject matter that I was making my art from. The connection with the Clash is particularly with the lead singer, Joe Strummer, because I taught him in his first year at art school. He must have been 18. He transformed himself into the Clash. He was always an interesting person. And he used to go around the class asking everyone to call him Woody. Hey man, call me Woody, man. And that was because Woody, like Bob Dylan, they both had the same hero, Woody Guthrie, who was the, you know, great American folk art singer. He left, and about 4 or 5 years later, I was walking down Oxford Street, and who should be coming towards me but Woody. And this time, though, he was dressed all in black with his Doc Martens shoes on, and Paul Simon, his lead guitarist, a bass guitarist, and a load of screaming fans. And I got up to him and I said, Woody! And he froze and he said, I'm not called Woody now. And I said, I know, Joe, it's just a joke. I said, I'm a great fan of Clash, I know all your songs. Well, fast forward just a couple of weeks, or maybe only a week, and I got a phone call from another ex-student called Caroline Kuhn. Caroline called me and said, oh, I understand you've just met Joe. And I said, oh, yeah, sure, Joe Strummer. And he said, she said, I've been talking to him and they want to know if you would be interested in designing their second songbook. So I said, sure, that sounds interesting. When I tell the story, I say, twist my arm, you know, sure, of course I like to do that. Well, to put this in perspective, by the way, MTV didn't come into existence till 1981. So this was 79, 2 years before. So what rock groups did before MTV was they made songbooks. So books with, you know, 90% photographs of the groups, some chords and some lyrics and stuff, but basically they were fanzines, they were expensive fan magazines. So I said to Caroline, well, what's my brief? And she said, well, Joe said that it's 48 pages, he'll send you the lyrics, do what you like. Except one thing, and he said, if on the cover, he would like you to use the nuclear waste sign, otherwise do what you like. So I did the skull, the different things. These are all different songs. This is one of the first songs in the book. It's called White Man in Hammersmith Palais. This is great lyrics. Punk rockers of the UK, they won't notice anyway. They're all so busy fighting for a good place under the lighting. I mean, Joe actually criticized, was not only a social critic, he criticized the rock business himself, you know. Stay Free, oh, actually, this is a drawing of all the different song titles. Civil War, Groovy Times, Last Gang in Town, Stay Free, Julie's in the Drug Squad. This Julie in the Drug Squad's interesting song and an interesting idea. It was around Notting Hill Gate, and at the time, that's where there were a lot of drug dealers, and it was before Notting Hill Gate was fashionable at all. And people say, oh, don't go down Notting Hill at night. Don't go, you go there at night. Anyway, what happened? The police were trying to bust the drug dealers. So they did something called Operation Julie. And what they did, they must have used some women policemen, but mainly they dressed policemen up in drag. And it was so obvious that you'd walk down the street and you'd say, oh God, there's a policeman in drag. And then you go back a little further and you see a drug dealer and they say, There's a policeman in drag down the road, and I say thanks, you know. So that was Julie in a Drugstore. It's a particularly good song. I liked it, and it coincided with I did a lot of work at the same time about newspapers. I called the Sun the Stun, and there's another one of the Stun over there, which is I took the Stun, and you know, it's the way I saw it, a similar thing just the other day, and I can't remember what it was, but from a distance, and this is what the newspaper wants you to, because they want to sell newspapers. So from a distance, Queen likes violence. Well, of course, what it says is the Queen likes a particular series on television, and violence in Northern Ireland. This was amazing. This was about the race riots in Brixton. So this would be August '77. So I was teaching at the Open University at the time, and I decided to set the students a project. So I said to the students, when you come in the morning, go and grab a newspaper, any newspaper you like. We're going to do a project about newspapers. I said, if you want to get the newspaper and you want to copy it, you know, be a sort of, as though you're a photorealist or something, do that. If you want to change the headlines, do that. If you think there's a story that hasn't got a picture, a pictorial, visual, do that. And just do anything, but take off from it. So I was going in and I thought, well, I've told the students to do this, maybe I should do it as well. So I bought a copy of the Daily Mail. So that was fine, and I started to think, well, what should I do with it? And now there's who will defend him? Policemen with weapons. And then what I did, this is really only a copy of what's in here. I haven't made anything up. So what we have here is carving knife honed to razor sharpness, murderous weaponry, hate, religion, regalia, authority, law and order, anger, decent, extremist, bludgeon, acid, knife, evil, scar, slash, fear, panic, bleeding, ominous, repellent. You know, that in itself is a poem of hate. I mean, it's as hateful but after all, it is a Daily Mail, which hasn't changed a bit. It's still doing the same thing. What I tried to do with this, and it's in the 70s, was I wanted to see if I could make a whole exhibition in a day. So the premise was that I could go out with a camera and shoot these different walks I went on in whatever city I was on. These are basically photo reenactments of journeys. So I'd walk along the street, and if it was interesting, I'd go back to where I started and I'd make this thing, and I'd shoot either 36 or 24, which was the old film. And then as soon as I finished this, how long would this take to shoot? 5 minutes, 10 at the most. Then I'd take it to a 1 hour film developing chemist shop. And 1 hour later so I could do it, you know, I could do a show. I never did it actually, I did it later. You know, the idea was that I could do it. Because I actually had the idea at first of building something, I could strap the camera to my head and I'd walk along, you know. But I didn't do it. I found it was easier to shoot it as you went. Well, this was from '73. This is really, I had a show at the Whitechapel about images. I did 200 images of change. The notion of change of weather, change of relationships, change of age, change of everything. And basically I've shot this film as it is, and I put it in a film can because I hated it. I finished it, I didn't like this at all. And it stayed in the film can for 28 years, up until 3 years ago. And I looked at it and I thought, actually, this is not bad. And that's why I started to make films again. I don't think of myself as a filmmaker. I'm a person who makes films. And my films are collage like my work. I mean, it's just, the collage has just been transferred to another medium because he's basically a collage. So they're disparate images stuck together
Are they images that you collect over time and then bring together finally?
I have a few. I have an idea and then I collect. But then I usually go out. I usually collect the work while I'm making the film. So I don't like it being too pre-planned.
So you come up with a kind of a theme or an idea and
it's going to be, And it often depends on, I often don't start until I got a title. I don't have to, but I was thinking about, it's all, you see, everything that happens in here goes from left to right for the start. So you're on a journey all the time. But also, I couldn't think, and then it seemed that the phrase best foot forward summed the film up because it's to do with feet. And it's to do with going forward, and the idea of the phrase best foot forward means doing your best. Great goal. Marvelous goal. Look at this goal. Yes! Bail. In the next film, there's so many disparate images that I had to think of a way of getting from one disparate image to another, and I think you'll see what I do in this next one. Let me see. Yeah. Did you see that? So you see, in non-narrative films, you can do what you like. I mean, in a regular feature film, out of focus would be a terrible thing. But actually, you can use out of focus because it's annoying to the viewer. I mean, it sets up a sort of state. And this was good. I was lucky I found this.
How much of your time would you say you spent sort of out and about looking for images and inspiration?
I've shot a whole film since I've been here, all about a market. But I won't do anything because it's all to do with editing. I mean, shooting's easy. Yeah. You have an idea.
How many days have you been here that you've shot it?
A month.
Oh, a month.
But I shot one film I've shot one film in an hour.
Goodness.
Yeah. But it'll then take me, week and a half to edit it. 2 days before Christmas, St. Martin's in the Films in London, I walked into this church and I said, as long as you carry an iPad, life's so just amazing, I think. It's all there. I didn't make up any of this.
And at what stage does the music come?
It's thought about all the time, and I'd make notes of what I think. I may hear a bit of classical music from Mozart, and I can think, if I reverse that, that would sound strange, and then I repeat it. In the last film, the idea that I used something from Simon & Garfunkel, but only 2 people who've seen this film said, "Oh, that's Paul Simon." They'd know, but most people, even musicians, wouldn't know, because it's changed. I never use it as it is. See this, as you can see, this is shot off British television. Some of it is American television.
And you're actually filming it from the screen?
Yeah, I shoot all the film on here.
On your iPad?
Yeah, I don't use camera equipment like that, professional stuff. Just shoot it, whatever it is. I found this little town in California, it's just full of cowboys. And I went into this restaurant, there's this cowboy, he took out his laptop. Why not? But I was just lucked out, really.